Hi, good evening, and we're gonna start right now. This is Live with Ria, and I am, of course, Ria, and you're live with me. And let's see here. I want to thank you all for joining tonight, and really nice to have everybody here. And you see if I could bring up the comments module here because I do have a thingy. It, okay. It gets kind of complicated. Live chat overlay. Okay. Okay. And this is just so so new to me. I'm kind of just, well, not streaming, but this live chat module. I'm trying to get something where I could bring up the contents like the comments like I do on StreamYard. But we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I am Ria, like I mentioned, and if you're new to the channel, here we talk about ham radio and other radio stuff. And thanks for all the support. We're closing in on 8K subscribers, which is kind of wild because I never imagined that we'd get here. And first of all, there's been some people, some of the other fellow YouTubers. Hey, Jojo M, thank you for joining the first time, and really nice to see you here. So people think there's a lot of negative toxicity and stuff going around, and people really think, well, hey, I'm that people think that how we're doing this to skim money off of people and all that stuff. And it's my son just handed me back my mouse. So they're thinking that we're just doing this. I mean, I wouldn't lie in saying that how we do make a small amount from the channels, but that's not the main reason for it. I mean, I've been given presentations to the community for a very long time now, and for free even. And I would say probably since I got licensed, I've been doing licensing classes and such like that. And I really enjoy giving back to the community and helping out people where I can. So, I'm really, really glad to do this. And it's not easy, to be honest. Sometimes you have to build your on-camera confidence, one. And two, you have to find material. Three, you have to prepare it and then get ready, and people will ask, well, why are you doing it? Well, I do it because I just plain love ham radio. I've loved ham radio since I was a teenager. Ain't that long ago. But I really, I do it, and I serve the community in other respects, so I'm really happy to do it. Hey, hello to Mike, KD2SXD, and if I sound a little congested, it's because I'm I'm kind of getting out the cold, and it's kind of like, just really, the cold is kind of wearing on me. But now let me see here. I do have the comments module now, and so I'm experimenting with this live chat overlay thing that kind of like, it just overlays the live chats like StreamYard. I really like that functionality. Unfortunately, I can't take another chance with StreamYard messing up my audio, so that's why I kind of opted out from using StreamYard, although some people swear by it, and a lot of YouTubers use it. But let's see how this works. So, Ham Radio Adventure Guy, hey, that works, didn't it? All right, so let me give some shout outs here. And I see some of y'all are brand new. If you're brand new and you're not subscribed, I would encourage you to subscribe because we do have a lot of things going on. I do have a very serious and informative topic coming up this week. I'm hoping to finish up that video. It has to do with, kind of like the whole landscape of spectrum, radio spectrum, and how we do that. Jojo M, as I mentioned, first time during a live stream. Jojo, thank you for all the do at amateur radio, education, inspiration. Let's talk of these comments. Jojo KN6HTD. Well, Jojo, I am always happy to have new friends join us, and welcome to the shack is what I can say. All right, let's see here. From Casey to IEZ, okay. AJK. Yeah, I was at that point too, and I still kept doing it. Yeah, hey, it's really here nor there, really. Let's see here. Hello from Tennessee. I actually worked in Tennessee for a little while. I had a little fun down there. I actually worked at American General Insurance, and I went down there to deal with patching and stuff in the data center. That time we didn't have this automated cloud stuff. It was all your own computer instead of somebody else's computer. And if you look at my Instagram, you'll see some of my adventures where I talk about Sun Microsystems. I used to work for one of their service providers, Fujitsu, and I actually was able to. I got a key from an old Sun E250. That was funny. Welcome, Tank Radio. How you doing? Tank's the up-and-coming channel. He has some really interesting views, so when you're done watching this live stream, maybe go over there and take a look at him. He operated portable yesterday, had about 10 years old, very interested. All right, that's nice. All right, so let's talk about tonight's topic, okay? And tonight's we're going to talk about Morse code. Okay, so I have a complicated history with Morse code, and I'll be brutally honest with a lot of things. Okay, I got licensed in the 1990s. All right, wasn't that long ago, but 1990s you associate with a lot of different things. The 1990s still had hey, 2 Victor Ham Radio. I met 2 Victor at a ham fest up in Boston Spa. Good guy. So when am I coming back up to visit? Probably next year, unfortunately. I don't know anything going on up there, up near Saratoga Springs, Boston Spa. We are having the awards luncheon next week in Newburgh, but Newburgh's really not that far. So, all right. But we'll see. I'm the professor. Okay. Question: I got my extra Saturday. Will ARRL automatically? You should contact the VEC department and ask them. I don't think it's automatic, but they'll send you a new badge that says Extra Class VE Examiner or a sticker or something. So generally, it's always good to contact them. It's sometimes they might catch things automatically, sometimes they don't, especially if you've been inactive, right? But if you're active, you want to do it. But Ham Radio Adventure Guy, congratulations for becoming extra. I need to have some sort of Halo music, but pretend it's there. So, and of course, congratulations. We'll echo those comments from Mike, Kate, MRD, King Poda, I guess he is. But it's really cool to see some of you guys, some of you familiars, get upgraded and going. That's great. It's really, really good. And I'm really happy that you guys are going up and up. Don't let anybody discourage you. Like I said, I got a lot of bad comments from people sometimes, for a lot of different reasons. And I don't let that discourage me, so. But, okay. So anyway, when I got licensed, it was the 1990s in Trinidad and Tobago. We had actually... So initially, pretty much, I believe all amateur radio license used to require Morse code. It depends on what kind of speed. In the United States, the novice license used to be 5 words a minute, and then you pass a written test, and then you get your novice ticket, and then technician, I think, was 13 words a minute technician and or 5 words, and then general I think was 13, advanced I think was also 13, and then extra was 20. So all of that went away in the year 2000. But in Trinidad and Tobago, we had the situation where our extra class, well, not extra class, but our exams, we had 2 classes of license, and both of them with the same written exam. One of them was you take the UK City and Guilds exam, which is what we took, because somehow we had a fascination with the UK, even though we gained independence from them in 1962. So, we kind of just really hung on to a lot of British things. They drive on the other side of the road over there, right? Right-hand drive. So that means if I ever return there and I want to bring a Tesla, I'm going to have to bring it from the UK or New Zealand or Australia or something. I think they drive on the other side of the road in Australia. But yeah, it's really interesting that we had 2 classes of license. One of them had Morse code and the other didn't. It's the same written exam. As far as I can tell, the privileges were identical, except that the license without Morse code didn't allow you to use Morse code, which kind of makes sense, but it doesn't fit in with the whole narrative of incentive licensing. So the FCC had this whole thing about where, and the ARRL too, where you earn your privileges as you gain more knowledge and skills. You earn more privileges, and a lot of people, gatekeepers and such, really like that system because it kind of maintained a pecking order. But of course, all that blew up in the United States first of all, in the early 90s, right? And, excuse me, in early 1990s, the FCC started to chip away. So they got rid of the Morse code test for the technician license. And you find that a lot of people got these technician licenses. And I remember in CQ magazine, they had a whole, and 73 magazine, 73 CQ, and I believe Popular Communications had articles about how get your codeless technician license. Now you could use the auto patch. Basically, that is user repeaters, and you pipe phone calls through. So you're kind of, you're making phone calls through the radio. And this was a big thing, and they had this I never forget this image. And if one day I find it, I'm going to post it in a community post where on the cover or in the article, they had this picture of this old lady, okay, this elderly lady with a 2-meter handheld in her purse. And she's smiling because she knows she's got ham radio that she could use for safety. So that if her car ever breaks down or, some other thing, maybe she's heading home from the bingo hall or, just coffee with friends and her car breaks down, she could call for help on ham radio. So that was one of the things that always stuck in my mind. But anyway, they got rid of that in the 1990s. In April 15th, 2000, they kind of got rid of most of the Morse code exams in the United States. They lowered the speeds, all the speeds. Of course, you still had codeless technician. They lowered all the speeds down to 5 words a minute. Boy, some people got triggered with that. And then that really, you saw lots of debates on that, and a lot of people crying foul, saying it's the beginning of the end. It really was the beginning of the end, because in 2003, the World Radio Communication Conference, WRC, got rid of Morse code entirely. So previously in the 90s, you don't need Morse code to access anything above 30 megahertz on VHF. And then in 2000, the FCC said, well, for HF access, you only need 5 words a minute. And then for all HF access, the ITU, right, because the ITU runs the World Radio Communications Conference, WRC, It used to be known as WRTC, World Radio Telecommunications Conference, but I believe they just call it WRC now. And they just, they got rid of it. They said, well, you're no longer required under international regulations to international treaties to have, excuse me, this cold is gnarly, to have, that I had last week. I don't have it anymore. But you're no longer required, like the FCC and such, and it's no longer required. Excuse me. It took us some time because the FCC moves slowly, and today they're moving even slower, especially since they have to deal with all this stuff for 5G. They really don't have time for anything else. What we did was there's an organization founded by Bruce Barons, K6BP, and Bruce said, Bruce campaigned to, and by the way, Bruce is, he's a very well-known open source software author, and he's a free software activist, and he was one of the original authors of a software called BusyBox, right? And BusyBox is a Linux distribution that lives in embedded devices. So, for example, your smart TV, or one of your other small devices, maybe a wireless router, has a version of BusyBox in it. And he was one of the people behind that. Of course, it's been heavily modified and upgraded and to use in those things. But Bruce was also, and still is, one of the founders of the open source software movement, where he, he's always been an advocate for open source software. So Bruce is a good guy. But of course, Bruce had a goal of eliminating Morse code for all amateur radio licenses, because let's face it, Morse code is an old mode. And he succeeded. The ARRL actually wanted to keep the extra class at least 5 words a minute. But the FCC turned it down and said, no, let's get rid of all of them. So, excuse me. Yeah. I have to take a pause for this one. Barry Electronics in Manhattan, I knew them. They when I came to New York, I actually bought my radios there. Even though they're a little higher priced than some of the others, they were actually, I supported the local guys, and then I didn't have a car, and I just I was able to take the train to their store, and Kitty was there. Those who remember Barry Electronics remember a saleswoman named Kitty, and I think Kitty, I don't know if she was an employee or co-owner or something, but she was a fixture in the store. They had all sorts of scanners and such there too, and pretty cool. But I don't think they still exist. We'll see. But yeah, so in February, I want to get this right. I have this in my notes here, right? February 23rd, 2007, in the United States, the FCC completely eliminated Morse code from licensing requirements. The first person, and I researched this, to upgrade to general, and actually he didn't upgrade to general, he upgraded all the way to extra after the code drop at 12:01 a.m. on February 23rd, was Joshua Rozovsky, N3YAR. Excuse me. He was the first one to walk out the exam session. The ARRL had an exam session that, was there when the code dropped. So he was one of the first. Those of you who know Katie Allen, okay? And I'll tell you a little fact about Katie just now. Katie Allen, back then she was W1KRB. She was the ARRL membership manager. She was also at that session, and she upgraded from tech to general, right? at that session. And she's gone on to become just a great advocate for amateur radio. And, she's a really nice person. Katie is my very first subscriber on this channel. She's subscriber number 1. Okay? Now you know. Okay. Okay. So that's a little background about Morse code. Why did I learn Morse code? Well, there are many reasons, right? I must admit, I learned Morse code because I wanted the admiration of the community. My Elmer, he was a big, believer in that Morse. If you knew Morse code, you're somehow better, and that's kind of not true. It's not really more true anymore. But I did it because I was kind of hoping, hey, maybe these guys would respect me as a real ham, because I knew Morse code. But you know what? Over the years, as I become wiser, I realize that that really doesn't mean anything. If you're a good operator and you're basically, you operate legally, you always try to advance your skills, and you always be kind and polite to others, you're a good ham. So that was my motivation. But I learned to like the mode, and I actually learned on a program that I typed in from a book on the Commodore 64. And it just spat out letters, Morse code letters, and I copied. So that's the story. So let's get into why. Why do you want to learn Morse code? Okay? A lot of DX and DXpeditions. So if you're chasing DXpeditions, they still use Morse code as their primary mode, right? A lot of them go into FT8 and Fox and Hound now, but that's, to me, I love FT8. Joe is my BFF, okay, Joe Taylor. I've operated with him several times, by the way, including the United Nations. Excuse me. A lot of these DXpeditions still use Morse code. So if you want to work them, you probably have to learn Morse code. Some of them are Morse code only. Hard to believe, but some of them. One guy, K30W, he said when he was operating DXpeditions, he didn't even bring a microphone. Excuse me. He didn't even bring a microphone. So it's kind of funny. But a lot of them actually activate most of the bands and modes on Morse code. And when you're operating on phone with a microphone, it's kind of, they don't really tend to do it all that much because, frankly, it kind of like wastes their time. It's a lot slower, right? And it's a lot less efficient. So they use Morse code. And this brings me to the other point. It's extremely efficient to use Morse code. And I want to show you something here. Okay? I want to show you some charts from ARRL. And I hope the audio behaves while I do this. Okay. And the audio behaves. Okay. Here you see a chart. And this is from QST Magazine, December 2013. You'll see here on the left side, you'll see a chart comparing Morse code CW to some other modes in terms of sensitivity, right? So Morse code is actually, at one level, they basically compare everything else to Morse code. The worst in terms of sensitivity, efficiency of the mode is AM. That means double sideband AM, right? There's nothing wrong with AM, except that it's not very efficient. Then next you have single sideband, because single sideband is better than AM. FM is a little better than AM, believe it or not, than SSB, believe it or not. But FM kind of suffers from the cliff effect. So once you lose an FM signal, it's gone, right? Excuse me. And then you have RTTY, right? Radio teletype. Okay? So CW is better than radio teletype in terms of sensitivity. PSK31, a digital mode. Anybody still use that? Is still better. Then you have JT65. It's better. Now, I believe this was created, of course, it's in 2013, so it was before FT8, which came out in 2017. JT65, you're waiting a minute and more for a transmission to complete. That ain't so good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then you have on the right side here, distance relative to CW range. So we're talking about the furthest one can go using a particular mode in terms of range. AM 1/16th, and then SSB a little better, FM a little better, RTT-Y a lot better. Then you have CW as the baseline, and to get better in CW, you have to use these digital modes. So yeah. So yeah, I didn't know that about FM either, Joseph. It's kind of wild. It is for the same power output, all things considered. Same power, same antenna gain. You know. So yeah. So that was what I'm going to show you. Brennan Price is no longer with ARRL. He left a few years ago. He is now on to other endeavors. He's still he's a friend of mine. You can catch him on Twitter, but yeah, he's still involved in amateur radio in the community as a ham, but professionally he works for another company dealing in wireless regulatory issues. So you know, he's out there, he's there, but he's not he's just not, you know, in the ARRL anymore for various reasons. You know, it's I still admired his work a lot when he was in the ARRL. And I wish he stayed on, but you know, that was yeah. Brennan, he did that Morse Code cassette. That was pretty cool. Yeah. So that is the sensitivity. So no complicated setup. Okay. It's not like FT8 where you have to set up. FT8 is involved. You have to set up time synchronization. You have to set up your computer sound card. You have to set up your computer control, like the CAT control. And in some transceivers, you might have to set up a separate PTT line, right? Push to talk. So you have your computer having to do a few things. One, especially if you run in Fox and Hound mode, which is the mode for DXpeditions, your computer is going to have to, one, create the tones and listen to the tones. Two, control the frequency, right? This is a must for Fox and Hound. And three, it needs to key the radio into transmit. Excuse me. Unless you're using something like a signal link, which uses Vox, or using Vox in your radio. No microphones needed, of course, if you're using Morse code. And you don't have to worry about audio and such, because you're really not, you know, using audio. No shouting to work the DX. And you know, it's kind of funny, especially if you have your ham shack. Some people have their ham shack in their bedroom or close to it. Maybe your spouse or, you know, somebody or your kids are sleeping. You don't want to be shouting in a microphone late at night to wake them up. No. You can work them on CW pretty silently. The other thing about Morse is it's ham radio's secret handshake. You know, I really enjoy when you know Morse code, you know, and you hear things, you know, in the wild that are in Morse code, a lot of people, you know, say like, wow, you know that? You know, there's a TV show called Jericho, which dealt with an apocalyptic scenario. And at the beginning of every show, they had a message in Morse code. That was pretty darn cool. Of course, it is just so darn cool. So I notice a lot of POTA guys are actually trying to get into Morse code now because they operate low power and portable antennas. So, you know, it might be advantageous to get into the mode where it's more efficient. Okay. So what do you need? So a straight key, I think you should start with a straight key first, right? And there's a good reason for using a straight key. The straight key allows you to develop in your mind the rhythm, right? And it allows you to get control of forming your letters. Then you could migrate to CW paddles. Now with paddles you have some options, but I really recommend a set of electronic iambic paddles, and I'm going to show examples of those. There's the antique Vibraplex bugs and such like that. I think those are a nightmare for beginners to use because you have to adjust the weights and the springs, and it gets really hairy. If you're a radio, most modern radios have a keyer, a CW keyer built in. But if you don't have a keyer built in, you should get one probably from, I believe Microham sells keyers and a few others. MFJ sells keyers too. And of course, you bring your ear and your brain. Okay, you need a good ear and a good brain. So I talked about these. Let me show you. Right. This here is a straight key. Okay. This is a model made by MFJ, but it's a classic design. If you go in Hamfest, you might find some of the older keys like the J38s, which are from the the army and such like that. But it's pretty cool stuff. But like I said, it's standard. I have a couple of J38s which are ex-military, because the military used to use them in training. Let's see here. This here is a set of iambic paddles. This one's also made by MFJ. There are a number of different ones. There's Bencher, there's MFJ. Bigali makes some really nice ones, right? And then you have a few others who make them. Of course, some of them cost a lot of money. With MFJ, you're pretty much guaranteed to get something inexpensive. But I've tried the MFJ paddles. They're okay for what they do. They're not like buttery smooth like some of the high-end ones, but they get the job done. So these will be pretty good. And how you work these is that your finger, the left side goes on the dash, like the da, and then the finger goes on the dot dit. So you go like da di da dit da da di da. That's what you do like for CQ, sending CQ. Okay. Let me see what else here. This is like the Vibraplex. You see it has a weights and such like that, and it's like this. So this basically what this does is when you push the dot, right, the smaller one on the right side, it will cause this arm to like oscillate, right? And the weight determines the frequency of the oscillation, and therefore the speed at which it sends dits. And when I mean frequency, I mean like it's basically like probably like 4 or 5 hertz. Basically it will keep sending those dits, and then it will of course decrease in amplitude as the mechanical energy runs out. So yeah, but these are more for like nostalgia and collectors and such like that, and people who want to exercise their who want to relive the old days. Right, so those are types of keys. But we talk a lot about transmitting. You shouldn't learn to transmit first. You should actually learn to copy and listen first. Copying and listening gets you to get your letters formed in your head, and it's a little harder to copy than it is to send. So this way you kind of pace yourself out. Once you learn to copy at a good speed, you could proceed to sending. This way you have the letters known well. You could get a code practice oscillator, right, which is like a separate device that basically emits a tone when you press the key. But your transceiver has a side tone, and you can actually use that without transmitting. So you basically have the radio in standby, you plug in a key, set it to CW mode. You set, on ICOM radios, there's a setting called break in. You turn that to off. And then when you still send with the key, you will still hear the tone, provided you're in CW mode, but it wouldn't transmit. So that's one way to do it. Do not, okay, and I was told a lot of scouts do this, and I really wish somebody would tell them to stop. Do not look at a chart with dots and dashes and letters next to them and learn that, because you will not be learning Morse code. You'll be learning something else. And that, I think, is, why a lot of people get frustrated, because they look at it and then they say, oh, dot dash, dash dot dot dot. If I read Morse code, I can't really decode it readily. But if I hear it, right, it has to come to you in the form of natural language. Like you hear me talking, right, because I'm speaking the English language. Well, the American English language. But you can hear it. You can hear me talking, and it's instantly recognizable, right? If you want to get to that level with Morse code. So you'll slow yourself way down. So let's get on to the good part. How do you learn? Well, thanks to the magic of the internet, right? The internet has a lot of things now. And I'm going to show you some resources here. If I could bring up my web browser, that will, let's see here. I have them all set up here. And, okay. We have a number of, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Right. Okay. So right. CW Ops, CW Academy is one of the popular websites. I have a friend who actually is one of their teachers, Eric Silverthorne. He is one of their people who teaches. You also have the Long Island CW Club. And they're a really nice club out here. They have some really, good guys, right? They have Ham Radio Crash Course actually gave them a thing there, I think. They have podcasts, but they tend to do, when during the pandemic, well, the pandemic's still going on, but during the height of the pandemic, they actually had Morse code classes on Zoom, right? And they're very enthusiastic about Morse code. You go and you meet them. They have a booth at a table at Ham Radio University in Long Island every year. And you kind of see them there, and they're very enthusiastic bunch of guys, and ladies too. They actually, because they have a ladies CW program, by the way, right? And they learn you learn Morse code with them. They used to have classes on Zoom, and then now they still have classes on Zoom, I believe. So yeah, they have the YL classes, and they have some of this classic war propaganda posters here. That's cool. I have a video coming up without that there. Yeah. By the way, one fact about Samuel Morse you might not have known is that Samuel Morse is kind of associated with the New York area. He was actually buried in, I believe, Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. And one of the clubs in Brooklyn has like a special event at his grave. Who knew? But but Morse was a controversial guy because he believed in some kind of controversial things like slavery and all that stuff. But that was a different time, and he's underground now. He's on the other side of the grass. But I don't think that'll take away from his achievements with Morse code and the telegraph. It was a different time back then. I just and while it's not acceptable, it's still kind of like it would explain why people had those kind of attitudes back then. It was just things. So yeah, whoops. And last but not least is LCWO. So LCWO, Learn CW Online, is a site run by Fabian DJ1YFK, and Fabian. He's a very brilliant German younger radio amateur, and he actually he has a site, and he has like MP3 practice files and all sorts of stuff. He also trains you for the WAE, right? The Worked All Europe contest. So the Worked All Europe contest is pretty neat. What they do is they have a regular contest where you make contacts and such. This one you actually pass traffic. So like if you make contact with one of the European amateurs, right? Because you work in Europe, and they ask you for something called QTC, which is traffic, you basically will be sending them a list of your last how many contacts you want to send them, and then they will copy that in their log and they'll get extra points that way. It's a very unique feature of a contest, and I love it a lot. So yeah, so that is the websites where to learn, and some pretty cool stuff. So what if you want to get on the air without learning? Okay, so you can. There are a few options. There are software decoders. Of course, to get software decoders working, you need to get your sound card wired into your radio. So a lot of radios now make it easy with the Bluetooth. Not Bluetooth. Well, some of them have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Like the ICOM 705 has Wi-Fi. But some of them, like the ICOM 7300, do it via USB. So, yeah. So there is CW Get. Right? And let's see here. Yeah. So CW Get. Yes. And I'll show you this now. Right, so CW Get, basically this, it has a window like this, and you'll see like a whole set of it just scrolling by, and it's kind of difficult to use because you have to adjust it just right to make sure that you're not decoding garbage, because it depends upon a difference between signal and noise. So you must excuse me. There's a free version and a paid version. I believe the free version only works for a certain amount of time, and the paid version, it's not really that expensive. So you can use that. And it's a Ukrainian, Ukrainian or Russian. I think it's Russian. So you have Russian and English character sets. So you have Cyrillic and regular Roman character sets. So you'll be able to decode both. But I just deal with the Roman character set because I speak English. All right, and let me see what else here. All right, okay. You can also use FL Digi. If you know the FL Digi software, that could work CW too. Some radios, like Elecraft radios, have built-in CW decoders. They're pretty comprehensive. So here's another good reason to learn Morse code. And if you're a technician and you're just getting started, you really can't do too much on HF. But if you look where the blue arrows are, those are the places where you can operate on HF. And you'll find that a lot of it is Morse code. Remember when I told you that when the FCC eliminated Morse code requirement back in 2007? Well, what they did back then too was they actually took the old novice privileges. So the novices had CW Morse code privileges on 40, 80, and 15 meters, and they had voice on 10 meters as well, and also CW. They rolled that into the technician license, right? No, sorry, not only novice, but the Tech Plus, Technician Plus. So back in the before. When they just eliminated the Morse code, they had a Technician Plus, which was a Technician Plus the Morse code, which gave you some HF bands. So now they just rolled that back in. If you are a tech, you can operate DX on Morse code. And remember how I told you how a lot of DXpeditions use Morse code? Well, because of that, you have access to a lot of DX. So if your goal is working DX and you have not upgraded to general yet, you can actually get on Morse Code, CW, and you can work a fair amount of DX. Believe it or not, you can work DXCC without 10-meter band even being open. And that's something a lot of people don't really grasp. But it's there and it's available for you. So, you can make use of it. Of course, I encourage everybody to upgrade if they can. But, if you're not ready for it yet, well, you can do this. All right. So I will have another episode on working DX. Remember, a lot of DX works split, right? They listen on one frequency and transmit on another. And it's always a good idea to keep several of your messages stored. You have a call sign, 599, thank you, and 73. Excuse me. And you're pushing button just to work DX. But I will show all of that in another episode, because I think it's it deserves the full treatment of a full episode. All right, so let me go to the chat and see what we have in terms of questions and comments and such. Chris, nice to see you, Chris. And Ice Hammer did Deluxe on the 991 Yasu. Okay. Yes, on W1AW, by the way, the league. That's a good point. The ARRL publishes a schedule for their station, and they actually have they actually send Morse code bulletins on W1AW, and you can receive those, and you can do what they call the qualifying runs, which is where you copy the text sent. So what they do is they take articles from QST, and then they send them via Morse code over the air as a bulletin for radio amateurs to receive. And it's kind of like an awards program they have, where you can receive the Morse code messages they send and up to certain speeds, and then you could get a nice certificate. I believe you can order printed certificates, but they also have online certificates. I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that's a good point. You can earn endorsements from 10 to 40 words a minute, right? And then Gus, Brooklyn's nice. I went to college in Brooklyn Polytech, which is NYU Engineering now. Let's see here. Okay. Great advice. All right. Okay. Well, Frank, you know what? It's nice seeing you. And I'll be on Frank's channel doing something soon. Yeah. Jericho was a nice show. Yeah, it was post-apocalyptic, and it was pretty cool. Let's see here. Yeah. Excuse me. What happened here? Okay. Stream's still going. Got 50 people on here. Don't forget Wisconsin. Okay. Claire. Carol, KP4MD. So Carol, I actually met Carol at the YLRL Young Ladies Radio League. She was there for our convention back in 2018. She was pretty cool. She gave a presentation. I remember she operated in Puerto Rico. She lives in California now, but she goes back to Puerto Rico from time to time to operate. I think she lived in Puerto Rico for a good while. She was a doctor there, of course. So that was pretty interesting. Let's see here. Yeah, and like I said, CW is an audio, not a visual mode, so you're not looking at charts. Radio Shack. A lot of people had good Morse code cassettes. Some of them had records, like 45 RPM records. I didn't grow up in the record era. My late grandmother had a record player, which I inherited, so that was pretty cool, and some 33 1/3 RPM LPs. But I had the adapter for 45s, and we had 45. We actually had some 78 RPM records as well too. Some, believe it or not, Indian music, were on 78 RPMs. Oh yeah, Kitty. Oh, so Kitty was a co-owner. Okay, well, that's cool. Yeah, but she was a very good salesperson in addition to being an owner. The Boy Scouts. So the Boy Scouts, like I mentioned, the Scouts tend to do it visually, and I don't really like that. I think they should do it by ear, because if you're learning visually, you're gonna have to unlearn it visually. Okay. Hello, KC9WXM. Welcome to the channel. So yeah. So okay. So yeah, I did remember they had a printed option. I just wasn't sure, but thanks for clarifying. So it's pretty cool. Oh, Morse Mania. Okay, yeah. So there are some apps. Okay. You can probably learn. I believe there are iOS apps too, or Android. Morse Mania. I'm trying to look that up and see. Okay, so I guess that's an Android app, Morse Mania, right? If you're interested in learning how to run a pileup and how to do contesting and such with Morse code, there is Morse Runner, right? Of course, Morse Runner is Windows only, but I may have gotten it to run under Wine on Mac. But Morse Runner, if you look for Morse Runner, and let me see if I can bring it up on screen here. Morse Runner is a program whereby you can actually simulate actual contest conditions, right? And oh, you can run it on Mac using Wineskin. Okay, interesting. See, and it looks like a contest software window, and it's really realistic in terms of like not only the Morse code that you see, but you get a lot of you get like interference, atmospheric noise. You get what they call lids, which is people just starting up CQing on your frequency, all sorts of stuff. It's really interesting. I believe they use these for the high speed telegraphy contest. Speaking of that, they actually have the high speed telegraphy contests, and they have the HST here, the championships, right? And then you have and actually believe it or not, there are actually some young people who take part in this, but a lot of them tend to be from Eastern Europe, believe it or not, and they basically perfect this as a craft, See, and they have all of these events and such like that. So it is related to ham radio, but it's also something that you could do independent of ham radio. I believe in 2021 you're going to in Montenegro. Okay, so I'm guessing Ranko 403A has something to do with this, if I'm not mistaken, because it's Handshake Novi in Montenegro. It's probably he's going to be involved. Okay, see, you can see just Eastern Europe is just dominating this. Well, you have Germany, but Czech Republic, Algeria, okay, Kosovo, interesting. And here you see you have young people in this. So how is that even possible? I'm glad to see it, but I want to know what their secret is really. How can they how is it that they're able to attract young people into high-speed telegraphy? Seems pretty interesting. Yeah, there are some good clubs that promote Morse code. Fists, right? The Fist CW Club. There's also Straight Key Century Club, which I'm a member. I'm number 2725 of Straight Key Century Club. So basically, Straight Key Century Club is a club that promotes the use of Morse code with straight keys. Right? Yeah. Let's see here. $7.50 for each endorsement. Yeah, okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, so you can actually change the orientation, right? But if you learn it the same way, you won't have to unlearn, and therefore you keep your sanity. Good advice there. Okay. So let's see here. Yeah. So Jericho is a lot of fun, and so let's talk about the Let me get rid of this. So let's talk about the final thing I want to talk about, but it's very important. What about people with disabilities? There are some people with disabilities who can't really hear Morse code. So the software obviously will help them, right? I believe there have been systems that use like blinking LEDs, blinking lamps, and such like that. That could help out people with disabilities who can't really hear the Morse code. Or if you look on the waterfall of a lot of SDRs, you might even be able to make it out. Sometimes I actually have perfected that skill where I can look at an SDR waterfall and then take a look and see. Let me see if I can bring it up here. I actually look at my SDR waterfall and I'm able to decode Morse code from the waterfall. Pretty interesting. Okay, let me see here if I can bring that up. I think I should try to bring up my Morse code, right? Not my Morse code, my radio every stream, right? So let's see here. All right. Let me see what I can bring up here. Smart SDR for Mac. Command after 1. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Alright. I think it's kind of there. Let's see here now. I think 80 might still have one. No? Okay. 3505. It looks like it's very noisy tonight. Okay, so this is Morse code. I think that is the ARRL. Yeah. I don't know if you guys could hear him, but so anyway. All right, well, I think I'm going to shut it down tonight. I'm not really feeling all that well, but I want to bring you guys a show, and I really appreciate all the support. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. And yeah, like I said, it's a challenge for some people. I'm glad we don't have it as a license requirement anymore, but I still think it's something nice to learn. So we'll see how that goes. All right, everybody, 73, and good night. This is N2RJ. Keep on hamming, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.